Hey everybody, it's another great day to be on the road. We are heading to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I've been wanting to go to Gettysburg for quite some time. My folks are big history buffs, really into the Civil War, so it's going to be very interesting to listen to their explanations of what happened at Gettysburg. We're also going to be doing a guided car tour in which we're all going to pile into the Princess, and a guide is going to get in there with us, and we're going to drive for a couple hours and see all the sights in Gettysburg. And we're also going to obviously do walking tours and things like that. So it should be very interesting. If you are into the Civil War or into history at all, it should be an interesting video for you. Now, we're going to do things a little differently though. This is a 6-day trip, and we're going to be driving halfway there today, stopping probably at a Walmart or a truck stop or something, and then continuing the rest of the way there. Getting a campsite. We got 3 days reserved at a campground there in Gettysburg. Well, 3 nights. Then we're going to turn around and we're going to come back. Again, 2-day trip back. Now, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this whole thing as far as recording and how much footage I'll get, but there's a very good possibility that this will be a 2-part video. You're watching this, which means you've already read the title, so you already know if it's a 2-parter or not. But either way, it's going to be fun. So my folks are ahead of me in the Queen, or excuse me, in the Princess, and I'm following behind because we are avoiding I-80, which is the tollway that goes all the way through Indiana, Illinois, and in Ohio and into Pennsylvania, because we want to take a different route that's sort of kind of county highways that goes along the Great Lakes. And we're going to stop, and if we see anything interesting, we're going to stop. So we're taking our time. That's sort of the point of this trip. We're just going to go at our own pace, and we'll get there when we get there, kind of thing. So anyway, that's that. I'll see you when we stop next. morning, everyone. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. Spent the night here at this Walmart in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I was going to take some video last night, but frankly didn't bother. So just woke up, haven't even showered yet. Not a whole lot to tell you. This is a fairly decent Walmart here. It's in this sort of mini mall thing. You got Harbor Freight over there and PetSmart and various other things. McDonald's is right here, and there's a bank here, so you can pick up various supplies as you need them here. And the manager here said RVs were fine. We slept perfectly well. It wasn't too loud. Didn't get bothered by anybody. So yeah, I'm waiting for my water heater to heat up. As you can hear, old-fashioned, actually using gas. Ooh, a little hot. I need a new water heater next year. This one, the pilot light doesn't work very well. But I don't use the gas option very much. I use the electric kit that I showed you. I use that most of the time, but obviously can't use it now because we're not plugged in. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's all I got for now. We'll see y'all when we get on the road. Okay, we made it. Boy, we went through some serious mountains and stuff. I mean, I'm sure people that live in real mountainous areas would laugh at the stuff we did today, but I mean, I'm talking chugging up these hills at about 30 or 40 miles an hour is the best we could do. I mean, the Queen could have done better, but the Princess was struggling, so I had to keep my speed down so they could keep up, but that's neither here nor there. We are here at Gettysburg. We are at the Artillery Ridge campground, and we managed to get a couple of sites next to each other, and as usual, I pull in forward so that we can be next to each other. And I had my awning out for a minute, but then decided to put it away because it wasn't doing any good because the sun is coming from that direction, so why bother? So we're just gonna get a fire going. We got some relatives coming in from Maryland to visit. And we're just gonna relax today, and tomorrow we're going to visit Gettysburg and see what we can find. Okay, before we start exploring Gettysburg tomorrow, I think it's important a lot of you understand what led up to the Battle of Gettysburg, why they were here, and why it was such an important battle. So my folks are now going to take over, and they're going to explain to you what led up to the Battle of Gettysburg.
Hi, I'm Diane Carey. I'm Gordon's mom, and this is Greg Broder, Gordon's dad. We are married, going on 38 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are also authors. We've written 53 books, and 2 of those books are Civil War novels. So Gettysburg and Antietam and Harper's Ferry and the various sites of the Civil War mean something to us, and we're going to hopefully make them mean something to you. Go ahead.
All right. I want to talk a little bit just about what led the Union Army and the Army of the Confederacy to this point in time and why it was important and what was really going on, because a lot of people do visit the battlefield, I think, and don't understand what got them here. Even though the battle was unintended here, they intended to fight elsewhere, they definitely were going to fight. In 1863, the battle had been going on for 2 years, and while the South had some stunning victories, I wouldn't say the war was going well for the South. Out in the West, the Union already controlled much of Kentucky and Tennessee, all of Missouri, and a General Ulysses S. Grant was in Vicksburg, which was the last holdout for cutting the Confederacy in half, and was besieging Vicksburg. And with the fall of Vicksburg, a few days from this point in history, the Confederacy would be cut in half, and this very vital trade route and movement route would be cut, including they already held the city of New Orleans, which was a very important port in the world, one of the world's great cities. So in the West, the war was not going well for the Confederacy. However, in the East, under General Robert E. Lee, which everyone has heard of, it was a different story. Lincoln had a hard time fighting generals. He went through a number of them, and just 2 months before this, at the Battle of I've lost
Chickamauga.
Chancellorsville. I lost the word. A Confederate army, outnumbered 2-1, trounced the Union and sent them running back. However, you would think, this is great. You know, the Confederacy's winning, they got to be really happy. The problem was that the Confederate army was starving. There was nothing left in the Fredericksburg area where Lee was, and he needed supplies. The Confederacy didn't have supplies for the most part anymore. Much of Kentucky and Missouri and areas where they would get food were now cut off. Their railroads were not nearly what they were in the North, and Lee needed supplies. He also needed to end this war. He knew that the war had to end. The Union had a huge advantage in manufacturing capability and a 2-1 advantage in men. So Lee invaded the North. He brought his army up into Pennsylvania, and while a lot of people think that Gettysburg ultimately was a big loss, and it was a battle loss for Lee, Lincoln was enraged at his general Meade, who, by the way, had only been appointed head of the army 3 days before. So 3 days as head of the Army of the Potomac, and he was suddenly in this major history-changing battle. But after the battle, Meade pretty much was broken, or he felt his army was, and did not pursue Lee. And Lee was able to not only escape with his men, but escape with tens of thousands of hogs, cattle, horses, sheep, incredible amounts of supplies to keep them. He escaped with enough supplies to supply his army for months more, and of course ultimately the battle went on for 2 years more. So this was a very pivotal moment in the history of the United States, whether the United States would stay one country. Because if Lee had been victorious, and they came very close on the first day, it's very possible Lee could have threatened Washington which is why he was up here. And then the North may have sued for peace because there was a lot of war weariness.
Well, also, England might have come in on the side of the South and supplied them and given them the support they needed in order to become a country of their own. The United States would have been broken into two countries, the United States of America and the Confederate States of America. But Meade did not move and stop Lee's army from taking all the things they needed to do and sneaking back over the border into the South. Therefore, the war would go on 2 more long years and get into the absolute hell that would become 1864.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We're here at the Gettysburg, what's this called?
Diorama.
Diorama, there we go. I got Sumo in his little bag here. Hey, Sumo! Anyway, what the diorama is basically, it's a huge display of the entire battlefield. As you can see, the battlefield was huge. There's the city of Gettysburg right there, which was really a very small part of this massive battlefield here. And you can actually see the way the Union line was set up in this J sort of hook shape. The fish hook shape is how you know. And then the Rebel line was on the opposite side over there. Now, they're allowing us a few minutes to go around and take pictures, but probably won't let us record the show. They do a whole show here where you sit in these stands, so that should be interesting. But they got all kinds of artifacts and stuff over here. It's really interesting stuff here. But we figured this was a good way to get our day started by checking this out.
Yes, here's Big Round.
Yeah, this is Big Round Top.
This would be Little Round Top, and this is where they made the charge. They came around the end,
Right.
in the movie.
That's where they did the whole swing like a gate thing as they
Yes,
charged with the
and
bayonets.
they charged down the hill, sweeping them back this way. Remember, Longstreet wanted to keep coming around. He wanted to come around.
Yeah.
He wanted to come. He said, "Let's move to the right. Let's move to the right." He wanted to come this way and come behind the Union line. Lee felt they would just simply move with them.
Sure.
And so they assaulted, and you can see when we get to Little Round Top, they'll come up. This hill here is very steep and really nasty.
Yeah.
So they kept trying to come around, and this is where they held. And this is day 2. Sickles did not like his position here, and just 2 months earlier, in the Battle of Chancellorsville, when the Confederates trounced the Union, Sickles ended up on a piece of what he considered excellent defendable ground, much like that, and he was ordered to leave it. And when he left it, the Confederates put their artillery up there and just destroyed Sickles' group. So Sickles, some say disobeyed orders, some say he stretched his orders, some people agreed with what he did, most historians very much disagree, because the Union had this beautiful defensive line, and Sickles moved his 10,000 men, his corps, out there, and suddenly the line is like this and broken in the middle here. And so by the time Meade, who was the head of the whole Army of the Potomac, found out, it takes a long time to move 10,000 men back. It was too late. The Confederates were already trying to come around him. They were fighting in the peach orchard. They're fighting in the wheat field. Absolute. Pickett's charge gets most of the historical notice, but the battle on the second day for the peach orchard and the wheat field was brutal. Thousands and thousands of men killed, and they had no choice, and he kept having to support Sickles because they were already out there. It also caused a problem for the Confederates. Notice the Union line is only about 2 miles long here. The Confederate line, stretched out and around, was about 6 miles. So they were far more dispersed with about the same number of men. But what Lee had ordered for the second day is what's called an echelon attack. An echelon attack is where you take, and excuse me if I get this a little bit wrong, I'm not an expert on this, but an echelon attack, what you do is you start at the end of your line and you move forward. And as you attack, your enemy tries to reinforce, then you move forward. then you move forward, then you move forward. And what you hope is by attacking first, attacking in waves, by the time you get over here, it's very weak and you break their line. It probably would have worked, but Sickles moved out there. Suddenly there wasn't a nice line, and there wasn't a good way to coordinate an echelon attack. Longstreet gets very criticized for this, and for the fact that he didn't get even set up for the attack till 3 p.m. on the second day. Well, there's not that much light left. He wasted a half of a day getting set up. Some people say wasted, some people say it just took that long. We're talking about thousands and thousands of men. So, you know, the old thing about the battle not surviving, the battle plan not surviving the first shot is a good example of this. So, was Sickles stupid, or was Sickles brilliant, or was Sickles lucky?
Okay, so we're just leaving the little show that they put on there. Basically, they just have a automated system that it's dark in the room and then it lights up various parts of the diorama as the narrator explains what happened there, with sound effects and everything. And very, very well done, very informative, gives you a much better idea of what happened there than any flat map would ever give you. So if you ever come here, I do recommend that you come to the diorama first to make sure that you know exactly what happened, and then when you go out to the various monuments and stuff, you'll have a much better idea of the way it really was. So we're gonna have lunch and then we're gonna go actually start checking out all these places. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the visitor center in the National Military Park and see about getting a maps and guides and things like that. And then what we're going to do is take what's called the auto tour, which is where they have the entire battlefield marked out and numbered, and you just drive to each number, and each number has a significant point in the battle. So that's what we're going to do first. But right now we're walking to the visitor center to see what's there. Okay, so here's the visitor center. You can buy all kinds of various tour packages and stuff over here. And they got a restaurant and cafe, various other stuff. They got a museum, special exhibits, bookstores, things like that. Okay, so they got a bunch of artifacts here. Oh, look at all the guns. Look at all the guns. Wow. They were wearing these really thick wool uniforms in the dead of summer. I cannot imagine. Okay, so we just left the visitor center. We got a decent map of the auto tour with some information. We're probably going to go back later. They got a museum and stuff set up in there. We're going to probably go back there and in there tomorrow. But for now, we're going to get our tour started and see what we can find. So I think from here on, basically what we're going to do at each of these markers that we go to, I think there's like 16 of them, my parents are pretty much just going to take over narrating this video and tell you exactly where we are and what happened there. So if you're at all interested in history, this next part of the video ought to be very interesting to you.